Welcome, everyone. Hello, I'm Jen. Welcome to Wildlife Conversations. We are on our 10th episode. It's so exciting. And first, I just wanted to thank you all so much. You have been so kind to me. You have sent messages. You've put the podcast in your stories. You have liked, subscribed, commented. You have just been so kind to this little podcast. So I want to thank you all so much I know you have so many things you could spend time on. And the fact that you listen, it means a lot to me. It really does. So just thank you so much. And I'm thankful that you're joining us tonight. Some of you know that I'm a wildlife photographer based in the Midwest, and much of my work is focused on the Mountain West. So I'm really excited tonight, obviously, like so many of you, to get to talk to my guest. She is based in Cody, Wyoming. She is known for her passion, her photography, her passion for its creatures, its wild spaces. She's known for her passion of Yellowstone National Park. You probably know her better as Julia.Little Lightning Nature on Instagram. Her Instagram is beautiful, filled with bears and wolves and great gray owls and foxes, just the beautiful creatures of Yellowstone and other places. So I'm so happy to welcome Julia Cook tonight. Hi, Julia.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. I'm excited about our conversation. It was so good to meet you finally.
Yes, yeah,
We've
exactly.
been following each other for a while, and I've just never got to see you out in the field. So I was so glad when you said yes to come on. We're going to have a good conversation.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. So this is a live podcast and we have an audience. So if anyone wants to say hi in the chat, go ahead. I see that you guys are joining us. So thank you, and say hi to Julia. Tell us where you're listening from. And we can see some names coming along. We usually see a lot of familiar names coming through here, Julia, and I'm sure you're going to see some.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm going to get my questions while people are saying hi. I'm going to switch my documents over here. And there's some
Hi,
people.
Aunt Carol.
Oh, sorry. That's your aunt?
Yeah.
That's so fun. I know my mom and dad get on too.
Hi, Renee.
Oh, there's Leanne and Renee. Yes. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. We've got lots of exclamation points.
Ooh, that's cool.
There's Michelle and Trish. Oh, good. Hi, everyone. I love seeing those familiar names come through. So some of those people have been on the podcast, and Trish is coming up. Trish Hennessy is coming up. So that'll be fun. But Julia, like I said, you are known for your passion for Yellowstone. And I'm just wondering how that started. You grew up close to there. So how'd that get started? That
Yeah,
passion?
I grew up an hour away in Cody.
Yeah.
And so, as kids, me and my brother, we'd say, like, let's go to the park. And we'd always
Oh
meet
yeah.
Yellowstone. And every opening weekend, we'd always drive over Sylvan Pass and into the park and go fishing and camping all the time in the summer. So it was just like a normal thing that Yellowstone was right there. And I
Yeah.
don't ever remember seeing like my first grizzly bear because just watching bears was like
It
a
always
normal thing
was.
of just
Yeah.
going to Yellowstone. And
Oh, that's
so
so
I
cool.
think growing up here, so close to Yellowstone, it definitely helped to
Yeah.
get me
Yeah.
hooked on all things nature from a
Yeah.
really early age.
Yeah. It's like literally in your backyard. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like right there. That's so cool to have that resource.
Yeah.
It's like 2.2 million acres. You've got a
Yeah.
lot to explore.
Yeah. And then once I started driving, I could,
Oh yeah.
there's times I'd like after school just, drive up towards Yellowstone, or
Mhm.
there were definitely a few times when I skipped school to go to Yellowstone.
Sorry to any of our teachers that are listening.
Yeah.
There's Jenny Cannon saying hi to you. That's awesome. Oh, someone's saying we can't hear you. You're muted. I don't know. Is that true? I don't know. Oh, I'm not sure. Someone's saying we're muted, but I think we're fine. I think we're good. Okay, we're fine.
Okay,
Everyone's saying
good.
we hear you fine. Sorry about that, everyone. Well, your Instagram handle is based on a nickname you had. Is that right?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
where did
My
that come
mom
from?
and I think my grandma also would call me Little Lightning. I have no idea
Oh,
why, and
oh,
my
that's
mom doesn't remember why.
cute. I love your handle. It's really
Oh,
just like it made me remember it right away. It's just so sweet. Yeah, I love it.
sometimes I've thought about changing it to make it shorter because it is kind of a mouthful, but
Yeah, that's so true. I know I did think about that for this podcast too. I'm
yeah.
like, why did I pick Wildlife Conversations podcast? It's so long. Well, so you graduated recently from University of Wyoming
Yes.
last year. What did you get your degree in?
I studied environment and natural resources and also
Mhm.
history, so kind of
Oh,
two
that's cool.
very different things, but
Yeah.
I incorporated Yellowstone into that however I could. For my history thesis focused on the history of tourism in Yellowstone, and
Oh,
just got to go
yeah.
through the archives and find all sorts of, cool old guidebooks and photos from the park.
Oh, that's
Then
cool.
for my environmental degree, focused on different ways to mitigate human wildlife conflicts in national
Okay.
parks.
I heard you talking about that on the photographer's mindset, and I wondered if it was part of your thesis, like
Yeah.
one of those topics. I'm like, that is so smart. That is so
Yeah.
smart to incorporate that, just things that you love and places you want to be. So,
Yeah.
and so you picked up a camera in 2020, is that right?
Yeah, yeah. That's when I started taking photography more like seriously. And
Yeah,
before I had a camera, but more or less just to like document things. And
yeah,
in 2020, all my college classes went online, and I had like way more free time. So I
yeah,
started going to Yellowstone as often as I could.
yeah.
And at the beginning of the pandemic, we are like, oh, it'll be a great quiet season. Like no one will be here. We'll have the park to ourselves. And it was like the complete opposite, which I'm glad that people
Interesting.
came to Yellowstone and were able to like experience Yellowstone
Yeah,
and like, kind of find peace in nature during that time as well.
yeah.
And then for my fall semesters for every year, and going forward in college, my professors allowed me to do online classes. So
Mhm.
I'd stay in Yellowstone and being in the park as often as I could, and times
You're like
watching a
in
bear,
class, but
also
watching
the
a
guys.
bear.
Yeah,
That's
that
awesome.
was really nice that they were willing to work with me and let me be in the park as often as I
Yeah,
could.
it was probably obvious your passion for for that. Yeah. Our local areas were really crowded too. I think everyone just wanted to get out, but even though
Uh,
international travel, to Yellowstone was not really happening, I'm sure locals just wanted to get out. Did that seem
yeah,
like the case?
I think so. Yeah, and
Yeah.
and people that had never been before that
Yeah.
came, and I think I wonder how many people that came in 2020 have been back since, like
Yeah,
that
true.
that also kind of got the Yellowstone bug and can't help coming back.
That's true. We definitely got the Teton bug. We had been there before, but 2020, we drove like 26 hours or whatever, got out there. I
Yeah.
know. And it was quieter. It was nice. And prices were like half off. So anytime
Yeah,
you can enjoy being out there, we will. So, and then you shoot Canon, is that right?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, I think we're both Canon R5, right?
Yeah.
I think so too.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a good camera.
I love my Canon R5. I had a Canon 5D Mark IV, a Rebel Canon 5D Mark IV, and then the R5, and it's just like I love that thing.
Yeah, it's great.
I feel spoiled. Feel spoiled. So, how often do you get to Yellowstone now?
Most people would say too often. I mean, I can't. I'm going to the park today, or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
usually during like the normal season from May through the end of October, like somewhere between like 60, 70 times.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
So, early on in May and June, they're maybe 4 or 5 times a week, and
Oh,
and then
sure.
when wildlife activity tapers off like
Yeah,
August, I'll
yeah,
maybe go once a week and then get back in the swing of things when it picks back up in the fall. So
yeah.
it all depends on what the wildlife activity is that I try to judge when I'm going. And I also always try to go on cloudy days when the light's better. So
Oh,
I get
yeah.
kind of thinking about that too.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I enjoy following it because I'm like, Julia's out. I'm going to see what the Bears in Yellowstone are doing. I'm going to get good reports. Even though I can't be there, I can live through her. So it's good. I love it. Um, are there times when the tourists just get too much, like in June and July? Are you able
It's
to stay
definitely
out?
busy. And
Yeah,
I mean, there's so many people in Cody, like family friends that will
oh,
say that, they don't ever go to Yellowstone because it's too
right,
busy. I'm like,
right,
well, if you go to Old Faithful, like it's going to be crowded, but
right.
it's so easy to find places where it's not busy.
Yeah,
And I try to have like a different outlook on it. If there's, a large group of people that are watching bears, like it can be really easy to look at that group and be like, oh, that's really frustrating. But
hmm,
as long as everyone's like behaving how they should, I always just hope that there's just even one person in that crowd that's like so overjoyed about seeing a grizzly bear
yeah,
that
that's
wants to
so
learn more
true.
about them or contribute to their conservation and protection.
Well, that's a really good reframing of it instead of feeling negative about it. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
hard sometimes, but
yeah. I mean, in the Tetons, it can get that way where you feel like, I don't know if I could stand here anymore with everybody,
yeah,
and I have to go and find a peaceful place, like you said, and just go watch pelicans or otters or something and just forget about bears for the day.
yeah,
But it's a give and take. And
yeah,
you want people to
exactly.
love those bears and protect those
Yeah.
bears. So yeah, it's so true. Um, and I know you many days have a co-pilot. You have a
Yes.
co-pilot with you. I think we all know. If you know Julia, you know she has a co-pilot some days. think I have a picture. Let's see if I
Yes.
the beautiful Sylvan.
She is.
Look at her. She's getting so big.
She's only about 40 pounds, which is pretty small for a lab, and I think at
Yeah.
this point she's
Yeah, it
full
is.
grown.
Oh,
But
really?
kind of
That is
nice that she's a
interesting.
little smaller.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of how big my lab was. I think he was like 70 pounds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is more normal.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So beautiful. And so, how often do you take Sylvan with you into the park?
She usually goes like every time, unless it's like hotter,
Yeah.
or if
Yeah.
I'm gonna go for like a full day. She's gotten a lot better now, and I'll take her car camping, and she does great with that as well. And
I
as long
wonder.
as I give
Yeah.
her time to like run around crazily
Yeah.
and burn some energy off, and
Yeah.
she she started going to the park with me only like a couple weeks after I got her. And
Mhm.
so from like an early age being exposed to like watching wildlife and not barking at anything and
Mhm.
walking well when we're
Mhm.
hiking also was like really important to me of getting that
Yeah.
training here. And she never barks at anything, which is really nice.
Yeah. I think I saw you post that when she sees you get your camera, she's ready to go.
Oh yeah, she'll run to the door and it's like, what are we doing?
That is so cute. That is so cute. I love it. So you're there, if you're when you're there 5 or 6 days a week and you're so used to it after these 4.5 years, are there still things that surprise you or wow you about Yellowstone?
Yeah, yeah.
Tell us
And
some of those
even
things. I love to hear that kind of stuff.
yeah. I mean, I'm driving the same, it's 50 miles to the gate from my house. So I'm
Okay.
driving that same stretch every time that I go. And
Yeah,
even in the park going to like the same places and there's always something different, like even
that's
just
cool.
one day after the other there's always something that's different. And I always try to think like in my life how many there's been a handful of like, wow, I can't believe I just saw that
Yeah,
moments.
yeah.
2 years ago I saw a wolverine that ran across the road in front of me at
Oh
like the
my
middle of the
goodness.
day in June, which was really random, but that, I mean, that was one that I was like, I don't ever go to the park thinking that I'm going to see a wolverine until it
Right, right. In
happens.
the middle of the day.
Yeah, yeah. So I always try to think of like in the rest of my life spending time in Yellowstone, like who knows what I'll see. And it could happen at any point too, which is really
Yes.
exciting.
Yes, which keeps us going every out all the time so that we could, it's
Yeah.
always that feeling, but well, something could happen,
Yeah.
once you've had those wow moments. But it
Yeah.
seems like even from the littlest things to a Wolverine, there have to be all kinds of things in the ecosystem that just can surprise you and wow you. I would think you'd have so much to photograph.
Yeah. And I mean, there'll be days that I don't see bears every day, but I see them probably 80% of the days that I'm in the park. And there'll be days that I'll photograph bears and then even just like a fox that I photographed for 30 seconds would be like my favorite encounter of the day because
Oh,
it was something
that's so
different or
cool. That's
yeah.
so cool. And I mean, there have to be like the owls and the birds and
Yeah.
all that. It's just so rich, such a rich ecosystem. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if people are traveling there, which so many people do, it's probably I don't know if it's I think it's maybe the second busiest park. I know the Smoky Mountains is really busy,
It's
but
definitely in the top five.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Um, do you have tips for people that want to come out? Like, and you don't have to give locations. Just like, what are some tips about Yellowstone that maybe other people haven't said, that since you know it so well?
My biggest thing would be like to not like overschedule yourself. Like don't plan for every minute of every day. Like leave time to be spontaneous. And even for people that are just coming to Yellowstone just because they want to see it and don't care about photography,
Yeah,
to if you're driving around and see something you're like that thermal area looks cool, like let's go
yeah,
explore that. And
yeah.
especially with wildlife, you don't want to plan your whole day out and then see a bear and then feel like you have to rush to
The
leave to
next
go
thing.
find something else, and
Yeah,
just enjoy what you're looking at the moment. And
yeah.
that's
That's
definitely a
so
big
true.
one.
Yeah. And leaving space for that.
Yeah. Also getting, it's like 98% of people that visit Yellowstone stay on like only the roads or developed areas.
Mm.
Like don't ever even go like 100 yards like off like onto a hiking trail.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah, which is a crazy number to
That
me because
is.
Yellowstone does have so many amazing hiking trails. So
Yeah.
even if you come and aren't big into hiking, to just say, well, let's just go a half mile
Yeah, a
down
little
the
bit.
trail, and it's a completely different world and something that most people don't ever get to experience. So if you have time, definitely wander off the beaten path a bit.
Yeah, and you get away from crowds too.
Yeah, exactly.
with those percentages. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that's great. That's a good,
Another,
that's good advice.
yeah. Dressing in layers too. I mean, I always laugh because looking at a crowd of people, sometimes I just want to like take a picture and like put it on my Instagram and be like, guess what the temperature is? Because there'll be people in like t-shirts and people in like full parkas because the weather can do anything at any given minute. So always dress for it for anything.
Yeah, yeah. I leave for Yellowstone in I don't know how many days, but I leave in a few days. And so that's like what I keep thinking. Layers, and then of course
Yeah.
it's very cold. So it's
Yeah.
like layers, 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 heated gloves, the
Yeah,
disposable
all of
heater,
it.
yeah, hand warmers, all this stuff. I keep thinking about just how many layers I'm gonna need and
Yeah.
but I'm excited. It's gonna be fun. Um, so I know that probably the grizzlies are your favorite.
Yeah.
And how you said before we got on that you've been watching those bears and the generations of those bears for years. So that's pretty
Yeah.
special.
Yeah, it's definitely really cool. And there are several bears that I photograph like on a like really regular basis, but
Hmm. Hmm.
I almost get more excited now by like a bear that, outside of the park or somewhere that it's
Right.
more or less like a random bear that I don't see very often. And it could be a bear that I photograph once and I don't ever see it again. And I
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah.
love that and wondering where that bear has ended up
Yeah,
since.
that's very cool. Since
Yeah.
many of the bears you photograph, they probably have names or numbers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so if you see
Yeah.
a random one, it's like, who's this?
Yeah. And it
But that's
is
cool.
really cool. This
Yeah.
bear,
Wait.
this is my favorite bear. This is Snow,
Oh, okay. We were
who I've
talking
been,
about them. Julia was
yeah.
helping me with the lineage before we got on because I know the Teton bears, but I really only know names of the Yellowstone bears. So this is Snow, and you can tell because she's light.
Yeah, she's very blonde. She's much
Yeah.
darker than she used to be, which is crazy because she's still considerably light.
Yeah.
But I've been
Yeah.
watching her since she was a koi, and
Oh,
it's been really cool to watch her. And she has two cubs now, and
I
just
saw that
watching
this year. Yes.
their individual personalities is really amazing.
So are there, so you said there's predictions if she's going to keep her babies. Do you think she will do that 2 years, do the two or the 3 year?
Yeah, so her mom keeps cubs for 3 years.
Hmm.
So Snow spent like an extra year with her mother than most bears. So
Yes.
now it's kind of like a debate if she'll keep her cubs that extra year since that's how she was raised.
That is
I'm
so
sort of leaning
interesting.
towards no, because there's been, I mean, so many instances where they'll be playing and she like harshly disciplines them or growls or, throws a
Hmm.
paw swipe their direction.
Hmm.
So, but we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that connection between Snow and Raspberry. That was
It's amazing.
so interesting to read about. I don't I would love to dig into the science behind that and
Yeah.
see what they think about that. And you just never know what bears are going to do. The story of 399 and 610, like swapping or like adopting a cub over, that kind of stuff is
So
so
interesting.
interesting. Yeah. I'll show one more photo. You shared another bear photo with me, so I'll let everybody see that. You can see why these are your favorite.
Yeah. This is the Obsidian sow. This
Mm-hmm.
was
Mm-hmm.
probably my most memorable encounter from this past year. And my
Oh.
aunt was with me, who's watching now. And she had just recently gotten started into photography and
Mm-hmm.
just wanted to come to see bears. So I said, you got to come in May. You have to come in May
Yes.
because that's like the best time. And so we drove over on the west side of the park and ended up seeing this bear, the Obsidian, who I hadn't like photographed in 2 years. And she sort of started moving like along a hillside with the like tree line and then
Mm-hmm.
road. And so we just like cut in front of all the people, like went around everyone who was stopped and got like way far ahead of where she even
Yeah.
was. I knew
Yeah.
she'd come that way. And, I'm shooting out the sunlight and my aunt's shooting out the window and they come right past us in this line with like a light snowfall. It was
Oh, that's
great.
perfect. That snow. And
Yeah.
I think that's a good tip, just that sometimes you just have to predict what they're going to do.
Yeah. That definitely took a long time for, not a long time, but being out in the field and like watching other
Yes.
photographers to like realize like don't stop where the animal is, but go to where you think that they're going. And sometimes it pays off and sometimes it doesn't. It's
Right.
really a gamble, but it's so worth it when it does.
I was going to say, and sometimes it's a big payoff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and it's also just, that's just a testament to you being out so much and putting the time in and putting the work in. Your instincts are building and building, and like you're predicting what she's going to do because you've watched her so much and put the time in, which is
Yeah.
important for wildlife photography.
Yeah, the animal behavior, I mean, is a big thing to pay attention to and
Yeah.
not only to like predict where they're going, but trying to like avoid stressing an animal in any way.
Yes,
So
that is what I was going to ask you about. I mean, it is stressful to watch um, the crowds with the bears and to hear stories about people getting less than, like, I just heard stories this fall about people in the Tetons getting closer than 50 yards just for
yeah,
the shot. And that's really stressful. So when you did your thesis and you were comparing all this, like, did you come up with solutions about coexistence, or how do we
yeah.
share these bears and do it safely?
Yeah, I think a lot of people hear coexistence and think like, oh, that's so much work that goes into it. When really like it's a series of really small, like when you first start doing them, you might think that they're like mildly annoying things to
Mm-hmm.
do, but that have like such a huge outcome and on like the protection and coexistence with bears. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even things like storing your trash properly, or people that have cabins, making sure you don't leave your pet's food out, unsecured, like really small things that people might look at, and you just have to be willing to do those small things to help protect and coexist
Yeah.
with wildlife. And that's education is such a big part of that too, of like trying to educate people how successful these small things can be, instead of it's not like, oh well, if you do this, like, I mean, there are very high success rates with all of these things and coexisting, especially with bears, and educating people about that, but also educating people why they should even care about bears. And to me, that's a big part of just people coming to Yellowstone and seeing a bear. That's such
Yeah.
a huge part of, people protect what they love, and
So
that's
true.
there's no better way to connect with an animal than seeing it for yourself in real life.
Yeah. And I mean, those things you mentioned are really cost effective. That is not
Yeah,
expensive. To
yeah,
bring in your dog food or your cat food or your trash, that is not expensive.
yeah. Or especially when you talk about hiking, like
Yeah.
carrying bear spray and being loud on the trail, like
Yeah.
that's it's really easy things to do, but
Yeah. Because
can
bear
be
spray
easy
is
to do them.
$50 or less.
Yeah,
And you can, if you're not flying, you can keep that for future trips or you can rent it. So
yeah,
and it's easy to be loud. Easy to
exactly.
travel in groups.
Yeah,
It's like some of these things I don't think people realize, that if that bear makes a mistake, it can be a dead bear.
yeah,
I don't think that people realize that, and I've seen
yeah,
that too with the foxes that are being fed and things like that. People
yeah,
don't realize, like, your actions right now could kill that fox or could kill that
yeah.
bear.
Especially the feeding thing. I mean, people think that they're doing a good thing and don't
Yeah,
realize. And
they don't.
back to education, if people realize the consequences of that, there would be no one that would be trying to feed these animals.
Yeah, it's so true. What about the traffic and the traffic jams?
Yeah,
Are there solutions for that? Just maybe I can share a photo that you have with that. It's really, we can see what it sometimes looks like. These bears are crossing the roads. So,
this was a photo that I did a photojournalism project my senior year at UW,
mhm,
that I got grant funding for. So part of
okay.
that, I went up to Alaska to photograph the human interactions with bears in Alaska and
Mhm.
how that's different from Yellowstone. I wanted to show how like accessible bear viewing can be. Like I think a lot of people think that you have to, fly out to Katmai and pay hundreds of dollars, and I did that and it was amazing, but you can also come to Yellowstone and have really high success with seeing bears.
Yeah,
So I don't think people come to Yellowstone thinking maybe even that they're going to see a bear, but I definitely don't think people come thinking that they could see a bear like on the highway.
right.
This is a photo that I took. It was in May, and as you can see, it's like a blizzard.
Yeah, beautiful
And
spring snow.
my family and I had been watching this bear. This is also the bear named Snow. He had been eating a yellow-bellied marmot, like just a few
Okay.
feet off the side of the road.
Mhm,
And these two cars came around this like blind corner at the same time she stood up to cross the road. And
mm,
so I'm like waving my arm out the window to make sure that these cars see her. And she
mhm.
just narrowly darted between these two cars. And, the people in the cars were like so thrilled to have like seen a bear and
Yeah,
had no idea that it could be on the road.
yeah,
And so I think educating people that, bear country is bear country, whether you're on the road or not. Like the bears don't care. They're going to be anywhere they want to be.
that's right.
People have to be aware of that.
Anywhere they have food, or like, with
Yeah.
the bears and the Tetons, they're protecting those little ones, and
Yeah, exactly.
you have to be aware that they're there and can cross at any time. So, driving the speed limit, watching constantly, driving slower at night. It's just,
Yeah.
It's so important. I always feel like, oh my goodness, my heart would break if I happened to have an accident, with a bear or
Oh
something. I'm
yeah.
like, it just motivates me to drive slow.
Yeah.
I can't
I
even
can't think of anything
imagine.
worse.
I know, I can't even imagine. Especially, what I think when 399 was killed, that really brought more attention to it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And a big thing that I found in my research was showing not just like signs that say wildlife on road. So
Mm,
I think a lot of people hear wildlife on road and maybe just think deer and are like
right. Yeah.
millions of deer. I'm not slowing
Right.
down for deer. But species specific signs, like in Alaska, they've had big success with road signs that specifically say moose on road
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and warning people of what to look for. And then also that sense of urgency, like that's a big animal. Like driving in Yellowstone, you could hit a moose or a grizzly bear or a 2-ton bison, like very large animals that give
Yes.
people a sense of urgency that they should
Oh,
slow down.
yeah. I had a huge bull elk. It was like 5:30 in the morning. So, you can't see yet.
Yeah.
But I happened to thankfully have someone in my passenger seat. I had a girlfriend in the passenger seat who was there with me that day. And I probably wouldn't have seen him. He was massive. And we were driving the speed limit, but you just can't see them. And when it's rut or things like that, they're not thinking about your car.
Yeah,
They're thinking
exactly.
about other things. So I mean, we came like this close, and I know it would have probably injured him and hurt my car, and
Uh,
but we were driving the speed limit. So when she said stop, I could easily stop.
yeah.
It's just, oh, it just would have broken my heart. So it's so important.
Yeah.
I think parks showing. Did you see any research about parks showing the numbers that have been killed? Like I know the big signs now will say, 13 moose or 13 elk killed on the highway and then slow down. So I wonder if that helps.
I'm sure that that's effective in the same way of, being species specific and
Yeah.
instead of the generalization of wildlife.
Yeah. Naming them. I did notice that on the signs. It is naming them, like those
Yeah.
signs that the words come across. Yeah. And this many elk, this many moose. Yeah. So that probably is why they're doing that. That's so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about when you went to Alaska. I remember when you were posting about that, and it wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily that you did a specific workshop, but did you plan it out on your own, like where you wanted to go?
Yeah, yeah. So I
Okay.
kind of did like a grand tour of Alaska. I drove up
Yeah.
there. My mom went with me, which that was like such a cool. We, went through Jasper and Banff on the way up,
Oh, I love it there.
photographed stone sheep in British Columbia, which was really cool,
Oh, that's cool.
and went to started in Skagway. And I had family that had come through Ellis Island for the gold
Oh,
rush and had been in Skagway. So that
oh,
was really
that's
cool to kind
cool.
of trace back, where
Yes.
my great
Yes.
grandfather had come through. And then from there went on the ferry to Juneau, and I did a day of bear viewing in the wilderness outside of Juneau,
Okay.
which was pretty cool.
That is cool. Did your mom go with you on that?
She didn't go with me on that,
Okay. Okay.
but we had some bears like even just in town in Juneau that we saw, and then she flew home from Juneau.
Okay.
And then I went to Valdez. I went to Anchorage and spent some time on the Kenai Peninsula and did a day in Katmai, which was
Hmm.
that was incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then on the way home, went up through Fairbanks and Denali and kind of made a loop back home.
Oh my goodness. Did you drive all this by yourself?
And my mom flew back to
Okay.
Anchorage and then drove home with me.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay. I was gonna say, but still, that whole like
yeah, it was really
that was a
cool.
lot. You're so
Yeah,
brave.
it was a long day. Yeah,
I'm sure it was exhausting, but just like one of those trips that is like life changing.
yeah. I went to Alaska, I think, with the like expectation that maybe after I graduated, I would want to move to Alaska, at least
Yeah,
like even seasonally
yeah.
for a seasonal guiding job or to live there part of the year. And
Hmm.
after being there, I cut my stay short a few weeks actually after being there and realizing everything is, I mean, Alaska's the biggest state and but
Yeah,
like everything is so spread out
it is.
that
Yeah,
you're going to be around Anchorage to photograph moose and you probably won't see much else and flying out on float planes to see bears and when you're there you might also see wolves but you're
yeah,
mostly going to see bears and
yeah.
everything was so spread out and in comparison to Yellowstone.
Right.
I
Which
drive
is
to
big,
Yellowstone.
which Yellowstone is
It
big in
is.
itself.
But when I drive to Yellowstone, I sometimes I have a specific goal in mind, but
Yeah,
I could see any number of animals,
that's
which
true.
I kind of like the unpredictability of that.
Yeah,
So I loved Alaska, and it's definitely a place that I want to go back to, and
yeah,
for a couple other species as well that I didn't have the chance to photograph.
yeah,
But I think Yellowstone is where I want to stay.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's your roots.
Yeah, it's
You
pretty
can
cool.
tell. Yeah. It's so cool. Yeah, I went to Alaska this summer and just felt like I think I was there 6 days and flew out of Iliamna to Katmai or Lake Clark or every day.
Oh wow.
And it was like just you could never see all of it. You're
Yeah,
just getting a little glimpse and taste of the beauty and majesty of this just amazing state. Yeah.
it's so pretty.
It's so
Yeah,
gorgeous. Like just to look down from the float planes and see like caribou trails and just not a
yeah,
car forever and not a road. It was so cool to be in an
yeah.
untouched wilderness and just see all that. It was so cool.
I
Yeah.
was so fascinated by the salmon run when I was there,
Oh,
and
what month were you there that you got to see that?
I was there like end of July and August,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
I got
Yeah.
to see several different species because
Yeah.
they're all staggered, which was really cool.
That is
And
cool. So
that,
what did you see staggered?
I think it was chum salmon and then sockeye salmon.
Okay. Oh, that's cool.
But and then just, seeing the like decaying bodies of the salmon littered across the
It's
riverbanks was
so
really
interesting.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. How they
And
pick the good parts and just leave it.
yeah, and the whole like life cycle of salmon is so
Yeah,
fascinating to
it
me.
is
So to see
fascinated.
that like in real life and it was
Yeah.
really cool.
And how that needs to be protected as well. So many
Yeah,
things. So
exactly.
many things. Yeah. Yeah. I was there late June. So when I was at Brooks, we could see salmon like from the platform waiting. They were just
Oh,
like waiting in a group.
yes.
They wouldn't come on in. So we knew it was really close. And like I think a few days after I left, they were at Brooks. So
Yeah.
like, but we could see them. It was so
That's
funny, just waiting. Yeah. I don't
I
know.
was at I was at Brooks, like I think it's considered like a little bit after like the peak. There weren't like 30 bears
Yeah. Yeah.
visible from the viewing platform, but
Yeah.
it was amazing. And at one point I was the only person standing on the viewing platform because everyone
Yes.
else had to go to lunch. I'm like, I'm here to see bears. I don't care about
I
lunch.
know. Who wants to eat?
But
I
I
know
mean it
I
was
had
so
the
cool.
lower platform to myself for quite a while, but
Yeah.
we were a little too early. So we would see like one or two. So it was really quiet, but I still got to see bears. And so that was
Yeah.
good. And just to be able to see it in person, what you see
Oh
posted all
yeah.
the time, it's like, oh, this is what it's like. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool. Let me show a picture from Alaska. I think we have a picture from Alaska. Let me see. Did you send? Yes, you did.
Oh
I
yeah.
think the puffin, right?
This was probably one of the coolest things I
Oh,
did.
I did the
And
wrong one. Did I do the wrong one?
no, that's the right one.
Okay,
Yeah.
because it's showing, I can see the bear still. So you can see the
Oh no,
puffin?
I can see the puffin.
Okay,
Yeah.
good, good.
So when I was on the Kenai Peninsula, I went to Homer to meet up with a guy I work at the Natural History Museum here in
Okay.
Cody doing volunteer work
Uh-huh.
in the lab,
Uh-huh.
doing like taxidermy and things like that on various animals that have died from human animal conflicts.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the summer, we had re-articulated a grizzly bear skeleton and had
Oh,
hired a guy from Homer,
interesting.
Alaska to come and basically teach us how to put it together.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was in Homer, I got in touch with him and he took me sea kayaking,
Oh, wow.
like 26 miles or, an insane amount of kayaking,
Oh,
but to
that's
go
fun.
to photograph puffins. And it was so cool we saw whales and all
Oh
sorts of
my goodness. How
tortoises.
amazing.
So it was really cool. And this was one of two horned puffins that we saw.
Okay.
Um, and it was really cool.
That is very cool. Did you see otters or?
Oh yeah, and sea otters too.
Okay,
And
I wondered. Yeah, I
they're-
heard people talking about Homer and the sea otters. Yeah, I want to do
yeah.
that. I am just like, I love otters so much. And then you've also had trips into Colorado.
Yeah. I went to
Yeah.
school in Laramie, which is, just north of the Colorado border. So I'd
Hmm.
go down a few times in the fall
Hmm.
when I was actually in Laramie to go to Estes Park for the elk rut. And then
Oh
I've
yeah.
gone back a couple years since and just it's amazing down there.
Oh, I love it. I've said this before on the podcast, but we kind of raised our kids going to Estes every year
Oh,
because
that's cool.
we've always loved Colorado and kind of wanted to move there when we were in grad school and just chose to be closer to family. So we've always been trying to get back to the West. So we took the kids every year to Estes, and now I have a son in school in Colorado, so we get to visit there a little bit. But
That's
Rocky
nice.
Mountain is just a special place.
Yeah.
It is such a special place. I love it. I'm going to share your photo from there. You have a beautiful elk photo from there. I love the composition and the framing of it.
Oh, thank you.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, this past fall. I went down for about 2 weeks and stayed with a friend, and we went almost every day and shot. And this was we called the elk split ear because his ears
Oh,
ripped
yes,
up.
I have heard about him.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he's like super aggressive and would like run over all over the place, challenging all sorts of bulls and just acting like so erratic. And so we were trying like moving around, trying to decide like where he was trying to go. And so I was kind of annoyed that these like really thick like cottonwood trees
Yeah.
kept like the branches are like such a mess and kept getting in the way of like a clean shot until he paused like that with the branches just kind of covering half of his face, which was a really cool moment and
Yeah.
one that I did not anticipate happening at all.
Right.
And
Well, that's a
definitely
good lesson to be watching
yeah,
for those things. Yeah, and you never know.
definitely my favorite shot from that trip.
Yeah, I love that. I love the cottonwood leaves and everything around him, and that eye is just sharp, and the color kind of mimics in that eye. It's so pretty.
Yeah, it was a really cool moment.
So I was gonna say when you said you stayed there for 2 weeks, like so you got to stay with a friend because costs can be so
Yeah.
expensive in the
Oh,
in
it's
Estes
crazy.
and Jackson and all these places. Everything is just so expensive now. I know a lot of people always ask, like, how do I do this affordable, with affordably? And
Yeah.
it's just always finding those ways to when you love
Yeah.
something to get it done.
I'm really lucky to live just an hour away from Yellowstone, but even sometimes I
Yeah,
like car camp because I feel
yeah,
bad complaining that an hour is still a little too far, but sometimes it
yeah,
is for those like 4:30 a.m. wake ups.
yeah,
So
it
car
is.
camping is definitely nice. And for that trip, it was nice being able to stay with a friend
Yeah.
and go in every day.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I have not car camped because many times I've taken like my whole family and we have 5 kids who are now a lot grown but are in college, but still I just couldn't imagine car camping or camping with all of them at some of those years.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
but now that I'm getting up so early to do all this, it is very tempting, because
Yeah.
that you're right, that early morning you're staying until light is done and
Yeah.
you're waking up so early that it's like, how can I do this affordably and efficiently and
Yeah.
keep doing what I love?
My parents are retired now, so this past spring we went and had like maybe close to 2 weeks camping just in the park at Bridge Bay,
Oh,
which was
nice.
great. Like I'd get out and sneak out of the camper and head out to watch
Yeah.
bears and come
Oh,
back for
so
like a
nice.
midday nap, and we'd all go out in the evening. And
Yeah.
we're gonna do that again this year, and my aunt's gonna join us for that too.
Oh,
So
that's fun.
hopefully
That's
there'll be
so
some,
fun.
some good bear activity for that as well.
Those are just such good memories as well. I mean,
Yeah.
you get good images, but it's such a good, it fills you up. And then it's just such good memories too.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, I love
exactly.
it. Well, I'm going to ask if anyone has questions. Go ahead and put those in the Q&A for Julia now. And we've got some other things to talk about, but if you have questions you have for her, go ahead and put those in the Q&A and we'll get to those. Julia, I know we talked a little bit about community and connection before we got on, or like in your question, I had a little questions before we outlined our podcast, and you said like connection and friends have been
Yeah.
really beneficial to your photography and your journey in photography. Tell me a little
Yeah.
bit about that. How has it been helpful?
I mean, there's been so many people that I've met, honestly, just like standing on the side of the road, which
Yeah,
sounds crazy, but anyone that does
no,
wildlife photography gets that.
totally get it.
And also so many people that I've met like through social media
Yep.
that maybe I'll see like maybe once a year, and some of them I haven't even met yet. So that's been really amazing. And one of my best friends is a wildlife cinematographer, so being able to like
Oh,
ideas off of someone who has like also like a very creative
mhm,
outlook and
mhm.
being able to bounce ideas around and take inspiration from each other is
Yeah.
really interesting. And my brother's a dancer and choreographer as well,
Oh,
so also
wow.
very creatively mindset.
Yes,
So
yes.
just having people to discuss creative ideas with, and it's definitely really inspiring being able to talk to other people about any kind of creative ideas. And
Yeah.
also I feel like any sort of creative art can be kind of isolating, like, feel like you don't have anyone to talk to. So even just having one person that also is creative is really, I think, really important to have that.
Hmm.
And especially like for photography, I think a lot of people could get too in the mindset of like if you're both wildlife photographers and you're both in Yellowstone and you're both shooting the same thing, like almost viewing it as competition
Yeah.
instead of being like I mean I love shooting with friends, and it's amazing looking at a photo like afterwards that you could be standing shoulder to shoulder and the photo still looks so different.
Yeah.
And I think that's so interesting. So anytime I get to shoot with people, I'm constantly like comparing images to be like, wow, like just the small different things that everyone has in their own style, especially when it comes to editing too,
Yeah, that's
it's
true. The
really amazing.
post-processing. Yeah, it's so true. So a
Yeah,
couple of things you said have been themes throughout. Like it's people have really talked about the creative process,
yeah,
which everyone has their own way of seeing it. And like you said, people have said that before too. You can learn from others and you can shoot in the same place and have a totally different shot when it comes out in the end. And
yeah,
the other thing people have talked about too is the competition. Instead of seeing it as like, I'm going to get the shot and I don't want you to get the shot, is more of that abundance. Like there's enough for all of us and we can
yeah,
all express ourselves in different ways. And there doesn't need to be that competition. So
yeah.
I feel
It's
like
so
the wildlife
exciting.
photography is like that sometimes.
Yeah. Especially, I mean, it's so hard to, try to do wildlife photography, full time or even part time that you
Yeah.
do feel like there could be some sense of competition, but
Yeah.
standing in the same place and shooting with friends, it's so exciting when everyone gets the shot. And
Yeah.
I always try to think, like instead of the love for wildlife photography putting people like at odds or tearing people apart because of the competition, that it's like we all love wildlife photography so much that that should be what's bringing us together
Yeah.
and inspiring each other because of that.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. I remember one time I was at Schwabacher landing on my belly, like photographing these like golden eye babies. She had like 12 or something, and I
Oh,
was just so excited. And I was just remember feeling so inferior because I had like a Canon 5D Mark IV and um like a Tamron lens and then I thought, why do I need to feel inferior? Because these guys came stomping in with like full camo and like huge
oh, yeah,
cameras and it just like made me feel so inferior. Then I'm like, I don't need to feel inferior. I'm out here doing what I love and I can still get great shots on this gear that's great. There's just this pressure to have the best, best, best. And
yeah, that's definitely a real thing too. And
oh,
especially starting out, and it's like I don't know how you get over that and
I know.
comparing people's photos, like if you photographed like a weasel and look at someone else's weasel photo, you're like, oh, that's better than mine. Instead of I just when I was starting out, I tried to look at people's photos and be like, why do I like this photo better than mine? Like, what are small things that I
Yes.
can incorporate into how
Yes.
I shoot to
Yes,
to make
that is something Steve Mathis said on the podcast.
yeah,
He said, he's always looking at photographers and getting inspired by their work and asking questions when he looks at it. Like,
yeah,
what do I like about it and why? And how would that work in my work? And how could I get there?
yeah.
It's
And
so
also
true.
looking at your own work and being like, one of my pet peeves is like if I crop like just like a tiny bit of like an antler or an ear or something off
Yeah.
of a photo, it drives me crazy. Or like looking at photos, especially early on, of being like, why is this not a good photo? Or why won't I use this? And picking
Yeah.
up on small things
Yeah.
and learning from that, like learning from so many bad photos.
I know. It's so true. I even recently I've been thinking, should I go back and like delete a bunch of my old stuff? I'm like, no, it's a journey. And
Exactly.
I've learned, and I am getting really picky about it, what I want in the frame.
Yeah.
And then if I would even consider a picture, there's so many that I just scroll by in Lightroom now, like, nope, nope, nope,
Yeah.
nope.
Yeah.
It's just, it is really honing your craft and your voice and finding who you are and what you want to say. And
Yeah.
I think that's so important. Like I think your work does bring awareness, Julia. I think you're bringing
Thank
awareness to
you.
Yellowstone and those bears. And it can be about, okay, these images, but I think your work is about bigger things than that. It's obvious that you have a heart for conservation and ethical photography. And it should inspire a lot of people to do the same. So
Well, thank you. That's what I hope. So that means a lot that you
yes, I do see that a lot. Your heart for these creatures is evident. Yeah. Um, Someone asked already in a submitted question, I think it goes along with this. If there are little girls out there that are wanting to do wildlife photography, do you have any tips for them? I'm hoping there are little girls that want to do wildlife photography.
yeah, me too. Um, just to not give up. And one thing when I first got a camera and anytime like I get any new piece of camera equipment, the
Mhm.
first thing that I do is like go play fetch with the dog in the backyard and
Hmm.
practice like shooting that,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
especially for wildlife photography. Like
Yeah.
it's, focusing on the eye and moving, following something that moves around like super sporadically that you can't
So
predict.
true. Yep.
So that's a big thing. Like if you can't get out every single day to be photographing wildlife, like photograph your dog, or if
Yep.
you know someone with a pet, to ask them to do the same thing. And
Yeah.
that's one big way to learn. And like I said, looking back at photos afterwards and being critical of your work, and not only what you did wrong, but also,
Yeah.
I like the background on this, I positioned this well, the composition is good, and looking
Yeah.
at things and always looking at ways to improve.
Yeah, that's true. And I think even just going to your local places, I think it gets intimidating seeing all these big places around the world that people go.
Yeah.
The local place is such a rich, avenue to try.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm definitely spoiled with Yellowstone
But
being here.
yes.
I think even if I didn't grow up so close to Yellowstone, that I still would have found my way to wildlife photography one way or
Oh, sure.
another.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so
You don't have
cool.
to be in these places to be a wildlife photographer.
Yeah, I love it that you have so much time left. Like I didn't find it till my 40s. And so it's like I felt like, oh no, I don't have enough time. I wish I would have found it. But everybody's journey is different and there are layers to
Yeah,
our lives that add to what we're supposed to do. So
exactly.
it's so cool what the possibilities for all of us, what's going to happen and what the stories that we can tell. So it's really cool. I think we had another submitted question. Oh, how do you balance work? Which I think, or even when you were in school, how did you balance that with wildlife photography?
I feel like it was almost easier when I had something else to do, like school, because
Yeah,
it would be like, these are the only days that I can go out, so I'm going out on these days.
yeah,
And now, like the past 2 summers of not really having anything else going on and trying to do photography full time, of
yeah,
like having to make my own schedule
yeah,
and balance things that, like, kind of like the admin work, like anything on a computer,
yeah.
editing, replying to emails, all that stuff.
It adds
Trying
up.
trying to balance that with shooting, and
Yeah,
it can be so hard when you have the flexibility to go out anytime.
yeah.
And my first summer of trying to do photography full time, by like August, I was like almost so burnt out because
Oh,
I was just in a
interesting.
constant like go, go, go.
Yeah.
And so this past year, I tried to pay attention to like the weather. Like I'd prefer to shoot on a cloudy day when the light's better. So I'd
Mhm.
look at the forecast, and if there was only going to be 2 cloudy days, I'd be like, well, those are the days that I'm going.
Oh,
And on
that's
the day
good
it'd be a little
advice.
bit
Yeah,
warmer, then I'd be like, well, those are the days that I'm going to force myself to sit at home, as much as I don't like doing it, and reply to my emails and edit photos and get
yeah,
that stuff done.
yeah. Well, I mean, I've heard people say that once it's your job, it's easy to burn out because you're
Yeah.
trying so hard to, make a living that you forget the joy of it. So that's good that you're setting boundaries
Yeah.
to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I try, except in like May and June when the
Right,
wildlife
right.
activity is the best, I try not to go more than like, I'll try to do like every other day, or try not to go
Yeah,
like 2 days back to back,
yeah.
and try to stop myself from saying, well, I should go out today.
Right,
I
right.
don't ever want to go if I feel like I should. Like I
Yeah,
only want to
that's
go
true.
if I wake up and I'm like, I want to go to the park today, and
Yeah, that's true.
trying to be aware of that.
That's a good marker. Yeah. And I mean, I have to remember like, okay, you can have FOMO. Like, I'm going to miss something if I don't go. Well, you could miss something every day. You'd have to be out
Yeah.
there 24/7 because something's
Yeah.
always happening,
Yeah.
or so it's like you have to just balance it and
Yeah. The FOMO, it can be, I mean,
it's
that
bad.
could be, but I also try to think like there's been plenty of times where I've missed something by like 5 minutes,
Right. Totally.
which I think is like, it's worse missing something by 5 minutes than
Oh,
if I
yeah.
wasn't even out that day.
I
And
know.
I've just accepted that I'm always missing something somewhere,
That's
and
true.
just try to enjoy what I'm doing at the moment.
That's true. To enjoy what's put in front of you and be thankful for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been a lesson for me too, to be just have gratitude and be thankful for even being out and being able to be there. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so true. Well, let me look at the Q&A. We have two questions in the Q&A, and there's one in the chat that says, "Did you go to McNeil Falls when you were in Alaska?"
I didn't go to McNeil Falls, but
Okay.
between that and like Lake Clark are probably the two top places I want to get back to in
Yeah.
Alaska,
Yeah.
just for those bears.
Yes, the bears. Okay, so Jenny Cannon asked Julia, "What are a couple of your favorite hiking trails?"
Oh, I haven't done a lot of hiking in Yellowstone, which is sort of
Yeah.
embarrassing since I grew up there.
No,
Most of
it's
the time,
fine.
I'll just be hiking like out of the park in the
Yeah.
national forest, because
Yes.
then the dog can be with me.
Oh, that's true. I did
I've
wonder how
always,
you did that. Yeah.
yeah, I've always wanted to do Avalanche Peak in Yellowstone, which I still
Okay.
haven't. And every year, like this time of year when I miss Yellowstone, like I'll just spend all my time like on Google Earth, like looking at places, and because off-trail hiking is permitted like outside of, unless you're in like thermal areas. So
Yeah.
I'll be looking at places and be like, that meadow looks like there could be owls there, or
Mm.
be looking at places and exploring from Google Earth,
Oh,
because that's
wow.
just
That's a
such a
cool
different
tip. Yeah.
perspective too.
Yeah.
And using that to try to find places that I want to explore
Mm-hmm.
once
Mm-hmm.
the park opens
Well,
again.
Jenny just did the Grand Canyon with a group, like did the whole Grand Canyon.
That's
She'll have to
crazy.
explain. She'll have to explain that because I don't know exactly, but it was like a big deal. So she's
Oh.
probably laughing at me right now because I can't explain it. But so she's can do that. I can't do that, but
I get distracted
that's why
packing.
she's asking. And then Renee asks, would you explain a bit about why female grizzly with cubs stayed near to roads?
Yeah. So in Yellowstone, there's a couple bears and the Tetons as well that have become like they're known as roadside females.
Hmm.
And the male bears will kill cubs that aren't their own.
Hmm.
And so the male bears are also a lot more wary around people in developed areas.
Hmm.
So these females have learned that and will stay very close to the road in order to protect their cubs, which also is great for people that want to come here and see bears, that
Yeah.
you'll probably have a higher chance of seeing females, which
Yeah.
is also really exciting if they have cubs, of
Yeah.
being able to watch that experience.
Yeah. And that causes some bear jams.
It
Those
definitely,
are the big bear jams. Yes.
definitely.
It's so fun. And then we had another question. Um, are there ways that you give back and advocate for the subjects that you photograph and care about?
Yeah, I always try to use my social media to educate people and
Mhm.
about these animals, and also try to be like aware of what legislation might be going on at like the
Mhm.
state level or federal level that could affect the like protection for our wildlife.
Mhm.
I've donated prints before to different like nonprofits and have allowed like various other conservation groups to like use photos for their messaging and
Mhm.
platforms as well to
Mhm.
help educate people on wildlife conflicts.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a big way. I think it's easy when, to just see some headline and be like, about bears and just completely disregard it. But
Yeah.
I always hope that for anyone who's using my photos for conservation, that just that photo will be enough to pull someone in to even just read more than just the headline on anything,
Yes.
and want to care more about it.
Yeah, that's so true. And again, cost effective for us as photographers because
Yeah.
it's not always a big money industry for some of us.
Yeah.
And so if you can donate a print, if you can let a conservation group use your or a charity use your photo, or even your social media educating people, those are all really cost effective ways you can do that.
Yeah.
Not all of us have like $100,000 to donate to a charity, so
Yeah, but
that
even something like a photo is,
yeah.
that's so invaluable. Like,
It is. It absolutely is. And it's our art. And when it's used for a good cause, that's kind of what we're doing this for. So,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
I always say I started photographing wildlife not because I love photography, but because I love the wildlife. So
Yeah.
anything that I can do, anything to help wildlife out, is I love being able to do that.
Yeah. That's a really good way to put it. Because I feel like now that you say that, I'm like, that's so true.
Yeah.
That's why I started too. It wasn't because, oh, I have to have a camera. It was because I love
Yeah.
that moose.
Like when people ask, like, "Oh, would you photograph my wedding?" I'm like, I can think of nothing worse than photographing a wedding. I'll
I
stick with my
know.
bears.
I know. I do portrait photography so that I can afford to do my wildlife photography. And I like when you said sitting at home editing, it's like, yes, that's becoming
Yeah,
a real tension for me because I'm editing so much for that side of my business
yeah,
that I can't get out, you know?
yeah.
So it's a real tension of like, what am I going to do next? But let's see. Jenny is asking, what are some of your photography goals for 2025? And maybe a species that you want to photograph. I was going to ask that later too. Like,
Yeah.
what are your goals for 25 and 26? Do you have collaborations that are coming up or things like
Yeah.
that?
For the Yellowstone ecosystem, pine martens have been like my nemesis. I can never get a photo of a pine marten. And
I
this
don't have
last,
one either. I don't have one
it's
either.
terrible. This last, like the day before closing day this past season, my friend Rebecca texted me and was like, "I want to see a grizzly bear, a great gray owl, and a pine marten," because we were both going in that day. And we saw a grizzly bear, a great gray owl, and a pine marten. but I didn't get good photos of the pine barn. But that's still up there for better
You
photos of
saw
it.
one. Okay, it's getting closer.
It's getting closer, yeah. And just spending as much time as I can being out in the field and
Yeah,
trying to avoid burnout as well. And
that's true. Yeah.
also polar bears are like the top of my list. So hopefully trying to get up to Churchill either 2025 or 2026
Okay, that's what I
if I
wondered if
can
you would
make
do
that.
Churchill or like
Yeah,
Norway or what we would do. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Anywhere with polar bears.
Anywhere, whoever's listening,
Yeah,
get Julia to polar bears.
yeah,
I want to too. There's so many things I want to do. It's like,
yeah,
how do I fit all this in? And the
exactly.
cost of everything, I know. And then
Yeah.
Kim asks, can you tell us more about your experience with helping release the black-footed ferrets? That sounded like such a great experience.
Yeah, it was so cool. This all came about again from my work over with the Draper Natural History Museum here in Cody, and
Mhm.
I've been with them I think 6 or 7 years now,
Oh, that's cool.
and doing, like I said earlier, like mostly like specimen prep and taxidermy.
Hmm.
But they partnered up with Game and Fish, invited them to come release these black-footed ferrets, and so my group of people at the Draper I work with invited me to come along and photograph it, which was, I mean, it was incredible. And we were releasing them on the Pitchfork Ranch outside of Meeteetse, Wyoming, which is where black-footed ferrets were like rediscovered. They were thought to have been like extinct for a really long time until a rancher's dog brought one back, and the rancher had no idea what it was and took it to Game and Fish,
Yeah,
who was like flabbergasted that it was a ferret.
yeah,
So there's a breeding program now through the Smithsonian Zoo and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to breed these ferrets and then release them.
yeah.
And so I was a part of releasing 3 ferrets. So the first ferret that they released, I mean, like the cage door opened and it was gone, like completely underground. I'm like, I'm not going to be able to get any photos of this. And the second one sat like in its little cage, I mean, like for at least 5 minutes. It sat there forever, which was
Oh,
incredible to get photos. And then this is the ferret that I got to
I love
release, which was really cool. And then it just kind of sat in its hole and stared at me
oh,
for a few
that's
minutes,
so
and I was
cool.
able to get a couple of photos. And I mean, it was so cool. It's North America's rarest mammal. So to be
Yes,
able to photograph that and also be able to like release one of these ferrets into the wild
that
was
is
so
so
cool.
cool. What an opportunity. I
Yeah.
saw them in the Rocky Mountain Arsenal near Denver
Oh yeah.
and
I've
didn't,
been there, but I've never seen one.
yeah,
So
we were shocked. I didn't know. I kept looking through my lens like, wait, what?
it's so
You
cool.
know, and then I'm Googling and like and seeing all that history that you just said about the rancher and everything and like, oh my goodness. And so got pictures, but he was way out. But even just to get pictures, it was so cool to get,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I
I
mean,
think,
complete conservation success story that they're
yes.
in the wild at all.
Yeah. And it was so fun to learn more about that.
Yeah.
I think on Julia's Instagram, you can see pictures of a black-footed ferret peeking out of the cage, right? Don't you have a
Yeah.
picture of that too? Yeah. So if you want to look
Yeah.
more at those photos, just scroll down her Instagram feed and she's got really cute photos of them. That was really fun. And then we have another question. I think that's what we said. Oh, do you have goals for 2025?
Oh, yes. Just spending as much
That's
time as I
right.
can out there.
That's
Yeah.
right. We did talk about
I
that a little
do
bit.
I
And then
do have
you,
a couple projects I'm working
yeah,
on.
that's what I
I
was
have
wondering
one
about.
I've had one that I've been working on for about a year now. I
Oh,
can't say
wow.
much else about it, but should be available and like announced like by fall.
Oh, that's
And
fun.
then I'm also hopefully starting another photojournalism project focused on grizzly bears, but can't say much more else about that either,
It's a
which I know is
secret.
annoying, but
You sound like a film actress. I have a project in the works, but I can't say anything about it yet. No, I love that.
it always comes back to the bears. So
And then someone asks, when let's see, do you edit in Lightroom?
I do, yeah.
Okay, and it
Use
asks if
Lightroom Classic, which I didn't really
yes,
know that there was a difference between Lightroom and Lightroom Classic, but
yeah,
I
there's
use
a little
Lightroom
bit. There's
Classic.
Lightroom, the mobile version, Lightroom CC, and then Lightroom Classic, which is they are a little they are different. Yeah.
Yeah,
And then they want to know if you use presets that you've created, or do you edit each image at one at a time?
I do each one at a time, unless it's like the same, like a bear in the same field, like with the same light.
Right.
Sometimes I'll
Yes.
like paste the like
Yes.
general
Sync
settings
the settings.
and
Yeah.
then do all the like fine-tuned brushwork individually.
Yeah. That's what I do too. I think it's David. He says, I'm looking at your images and I really like your touch.
Thank you.
That's so good. Sometimes I can't see all the questions in the chat. So if I've missed your question, you can put it over in the Q&A box and then I can find it a little bit better because that chat is scrolling by us so fast. But you guys had great questions tonight. Thank you so much. Um, we do have time for the speed round if you want to do that, Julia.
Perfect.
Okay, so there's 6 questions and they're pretty easy, I think.
Okay.
So what's in your camera bag you can't do without?
Always extra batteries. And I actually have a charger that I plug into my USB port in my car that
Oh,
like
that's nice.
charges 2 batteries at the same time, which has been like game changing for being out in the field.
That
It's
is
great.
nice. I was just looking that up today since we're going to Yellowstone and it's going to be so
Yeah.
cold. And I was going to ask you, like, how many batteries should I have with me for the day if I can't charge?
When I went on snowmobiles last week, I
Yeah.
brought 6,
Okay.
which I didn't even drain like 1 bar on one battery because it was so slow. But you can also like put a hand warmer like somewhere close, like not
Yes.
on top of your batteries, but somewhere close to
Okay.
it. And
Okay.
that'll
That's a
help
good idea.
them from like draining so quickly.
That's a good idea. I think I have 5 or 6, and that's what I was going to take. So, and
Yeah,
then
you
just
should.
recharge. I don't think I'll go through all those, but just thought
Yeah, you never
having
know.
close. Yeah, you never know.
Hopefully you
That's the
will.
thing. That's the thing. So batteries, and then do you know
Yeah.
what kind of charger that is? Maybe you could,
I got it on Amazon. It was maybe
okay.
like under $20, so
Yeah, that's a good
it
idea.
works great.
Yeah. And then what's something in your camera bag that you bought but you never use?
Probably like a rain cover. I have one, but I don't ever put it on, and
That's what someone
I'm
said.
so worried that like someday I'm not gonna put it on and just be like, oh my camera's weather sealed and something's gonna go horribly wrong, but
Yeah,
that hasn't happened yet. So
I know. I have used the disposable ones a couple times, but then I have the other one that's the sturdy one, and I don't think I've ever used it. It's just
yeah.
so clumsy.
Yeah, it is.
And what's your favorite lens for Yellowstone? Do
I
you have
almost
a favorite
always
lens?
shoot on a 300 2.8.
Yeah,
And I was so torn. I wanted the 400 2.8, but they're so expensive.
yeah,
So I was really torn on what lens would be best. And so I
yeah,
picked the 300 because I decided I'd rather miss shots because something was too far away compared to it being like too close that it was like full
right,
frame fur
right.
or something like that. And
So true.
also prioritize that low light shooting.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a 2.8, so you've got the
Yeah, it's
low
great.
light capabilities. That's so
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, I love having a 2.8 lens on just for that, especially like early morning rut or things like that.
Oh
You can get
yeah.
those shots. Yeah, it's so fun. Do you have a teleconverter for it just in case, or is that a
I
goal?
do. Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
I have a 1.4 and a 2 times. I
yeah,
hardly ever use them, especially with the
yeah.
R5 because I can crop in so much.
I
But if
know.
I didn't
Yeah,
have that capability, I'd probably use the teleconverters more.
yeah. And sometimes I'm in a situation where I just don't want to switch it out. It's just
Yeah, that too.
takes too
Yeah.
much to switch it out. Yeah. Okay, so favorite snack while editing or driving to Yellowstone or driving around Yellowstone?
I always have like jerky and like dried fruit with me.
Yeah.
And then if it's like a like really slow day in the park, like I'll go to one of the general stores and like get like a scoop of ice cream or
Oh,
something like
fun. A little
yeah.
sugar.
Yeah,
It's always fun.
exactly.
I know. I always have to get a little like snack or something, like just like a little treat.
Yeah. Or like a Dr. Pepper or something to stay caffeinated
I
in
was
a
gonna
little.
say, I was gonna say it's like a Diet Coke, probably.
Yeah.
So all those, a lot of these shots that you're showing are with the 300s, one wants to know.
Yeah, most of them are.
Yeah,
And most of them are like pretty cropped in,
yeah,
but I can get away with that, which is
yeah,
nice.
yeah. The R5 allows that for sure. Yeah. Is there a wildlife experience you can think of that made you laugh?
Honestly, anything with baby animals, like they're always so playful and
Yeah.
make me laugh. Yeah.
I assume that you've seen lots of bear cubs tumbling around.
Oh yeah. I watched a fox den this past spring, which
Oh, that is so fun.
Sylvan was like at the same age where she would like, I was like, I could just throw her out there and they'd become best
She play
friends.
around with them. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, little fox, baby foxes. Kids are so fun to watch. I had a den locally that waited for like 6 hours, just waiting for them to come out, and then here they came. All it was time to play. It was just
Yeah.
fun, so fun to watch. And then, is there a wildlife experience that made you cry with happy tears or sad tears?
Maybe the first time I saw a 399 with the quads.
Oh yeah,
I had gone over like, I don't know, 4 or 5 times to the Tetons whole spring and summer and like would miss them by like 5 minutes or I mean like so close every time.
Yep.
And then when I finally saw them, my mom was with me and they
Oh,
crossed
good.
right in front of us and we were
Oh,
just
good.
so I mean it was so cool.
Do you remember what age they were? Was it the first year? Were they coy or was it the
It
next?
was the first year and it was in
Oh,
August. So they were like
oh, they're
they were a
growing.
little bit bigger, but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, we saw them in, I think, it was probably late May or that first few days of June. I can't, or maybe it was just early June, I think, that first year, 2020. And it was a big crowd of people, but the sun was setting
Oh, that's
and
cool.
I know. And I'm not kidding you. The sunset behind us was probably one of the most beautiful sunsets ever in the Tetons, but none of us were looking at it because we were just
Yeah.
waiting. And then someone said that there was a pronghorn to the right of our cars that gave birth. Nobody saw
Oh,
that.
nobody watched.
And we were all just quiet, waiting for her to cross.
So cool.
And then, of course, as we almost had no light to shoot anymore, she walks across with these
Yeah.
tiny little babies. And I think when I got home, I was still just like, you know,
Yeah.
shaking. I was so excited. It was just magnetic. Like you could feel the energy in the air.
I have an Apple Watch and it like tracks my heart rate and like I'll often, not often, but occasionally like get like high heart rate notifications and be like, "Are you okay?" And I have to hit yes, but it's just because I've gotten so excited about something and he just wants to make sure I'm okay. So that always makes me
Love
laugh.
that so much. I love that. I think I've heard, the term bear buzz. It is real.
Oh yeah, that was
Totally
definitely
real.
that.
So real. So, is there a wildlife moment that really touched your soul or filled you emotionally? Can you think of this really special moment?
Honestly, like any time that I'm watching wildlife, I always get like a little jittery and just feel so lucky that I'm able to see any part of these animals' lives. And
I know.
like anytime I hear wolves howl, like
Mhm.
that's amazing too. Just
Yeah.
even if you don't see them and
Yeah.
yeah, just those small like wild moments like that.
Yeah, it's so true. I have never seen a wolf in the wild.
Oh,
I
hopefully this
so
winter.
you have to
We
keep
can
your
go.
fingers crossed for the next week that I'll see them.
Yeah.
'Cause we have a place called Wolf Park here, and
Okay.
so they have a wolf education center, and we have several wolves that are there. And I have gotten to go in the enclosure with them before. They had a donor, a client that gave money for the park, and then so he asked me to come photograph it. So I mean, I have been right next to
So
them,
cool.
but they're very tame. They're
Yeah.
very, so it still to be next to a wolf and realize how big they are and see the
Yeah.
shoulders and the teeth and everything was so cool.
A
So
wolf was one of the subjects that when I was first starting photography, like I'd seen wolves as a kid, but I was like, I want a photo of a wolf. And
mhm.
I mean, I'd be somewhere and like just after they had been there, and I was trying so hard to photograph them, and then finally there was just one day where everything lined up, and I was able to finally see them.
Yeah.
But it was only once I had like committed to like stop trying so hard that then it
Oh, that's
happened.
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah,
and just let it happen. Yeah, and
yeah,
you're still putting that time in though, Julia. You're putting that time in where you know it's going to happen at some point.
yeah, that's true.
And you have so many more moments that are going to happen coming these coming years. It's very
I
exciting to think
hope so.
about.
Yeah,
That's what's so fun is like not only to look at your work and like how far you've come, but like to look back and be like, oh my gosh, that experience was so fun and that animal was so beautiful. Like that's sometimes I just like to look at my image just to see and be thankful for the moments that I had with these wild creatures. It's like I
yeah,
can't believe that really happened.
yeah.
Just
And
so
I'm
thankful.
my like spatial memory, like I mean, I could drive the road into Yellowstone, and I could be really annoying if anyone was with me and be like, I saw a bear here, I saw a bear there, and like
I know.
have like a good memory on where everything is. So it's almost like anytime I drive into the park, like I have all those memories
Yes.
that replay like every time,
Yes.
which is really cool.
Yeah. I'm the same way and I'm annoying. I'm because I've taken my kids in and like they'll visit me while I'm in the Tetons and then I'll take them in and I feel like, okay, just forget for a moment all those places because you sound like a tour guide. Just be quiet. But it's just
Yeah,
they're here. It's like, oh, I remember this
yeah,
time where I saw a moose here and then yeah, it's so fun. I just love
yeah.
it. So, do you have collaborations with like video, you said the videographer. Do you have anything coming up with that?
It, the videographer is one of my good friends, so
Okay,
anytime
okay.
he's here, like we'll try to go out and shoot together, and
Dude, that's so cool just to have that
yeah,
creative, that like
yeah,
you
it
said,
is
that
really
creative
cool.
partnership. That is really cool.
And it's so interesting just like watching the difference, like photography and videography are like so similar, but the
Yeah,
different ways that we go about doing things. And I mean,
yeah.
there'll be days that we'll spend in the park together and I'll be like, oh, I didn't get anything good. And he's like, it was an amazing day. And just the difference between like what we're both able to work with in terms of
Yeah.
wildlife is really interesting.
Yeah, I have that on my goal list. Like it's constantly moving to the next month, like to get better at the video part. And I
Yeah.
just love the stills so much that
Yeah,
it's,
I do too.
I don't know. I don't
He's
know.
always trying to get me to try videography. I'm like, I think I'm gonna stick with photography for now.
Because it's another skill to learn.
Yeah, that's
Another
true
thing to
too.
learn.
Yeah.
Well, Julia, I just really appreciate our conversation. It's been so fun to just get to know you better. And I hope we get to see each other out in the field sometime. That would be
Yeah.
really fun. Do you have any closing words for people about saving these places and protecting these places?
Yeah, just to anyone that's not been to Yellowstone and wants to come to, read up beforehand and go in as prepared as you can be, and
Yeah.
yeah, just follow the same ethical practices that you would back home with your own local wildlife when you
Yeah.
come here.
Yeah. And there are definitely national park guidelines once you get in there of how far you need to be and yeah, and to follow those, which people aren't. So you have to make sure you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's been so good. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And if you would like to, I'm going to have the episode out tomorrow on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts with Julia. And if you'd like to follow those, comment, share, like, that really helps. And then our next guest is Colin Bigelow. He'll be February 11th. So watch for the registration for that. And Julia, I just want to thank you again for joining me. It's been really fun. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on, and thanks for everyone that watched live and asked questions. And
Yeah, it was a good night. Thanks, everybody. Thanks so much. Okay. Good night, Julia. Thank you so much.
good night.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.